What you doing? You working on something? Eating some yummy food? Yum, yum, yum. Well, guess what? Now you're gonna listen to me for 5 minutes. 8 minutes? Rambling about something or other, this and that. Alright, so today I actually want to talk about OCs. In particular, OC types that I think get a little bit overhated, and also why I think they're overhated, or hated a lot. It's like, so, there are three main beginner OCs that I notice, and this is coming from somebody who was on the internet way too young. Like, I was into fanfiction and the shit, before I really should have been. 8 years old is too young to have free reign on the internet. I'm just saying. But some of that just gave me the opportunity to kind of grow up a little bit with fanfiction culture, OC culture, stuff like that. The biggest OC types that I feel were common for new writers like myself, you had the self-insert, the Mary Sue, and the canon character copy. And honestly, I feel like they're a little bit overhated. Especially like the self-insert and the Mary Sue, I feel like get a lot of vitriol, even when they're done, correctly or in a way that's cool and interesting, right? And I'm gonna start with the self-insert. So, if you're wondering, what is a self-insert? It's basically you writing about you, or inserting your own thoughts, feelings, etc. Based on no actual character, it's just you. Looks like you, sounds like you. I mean, it may not even look like you. It could have, like, an idealized version of you. But it's still pretty much you. And these can be done well. Like, there are people who insert themselves into stories, and they actually add a lot. I think what ends up getting this certain OC type a lot of hate is, honest to God, that most of the time, the people who do this are very quick to get defensive, because they feel like you're criticizing them. It's a lot more personal, and it leads to some of the most diva arguments imaginable. Self-inserting, I don't think by itself is super cringe. And actually, I hate calling OCs cringe, especially if it's obvious they're a brand new writer. But for example, right, with self-inserts, I actually use self-inserts pretty often myself. I use it as a way to usually deal with some kind of problem I'm having, or as a means of figuring out my canon character's problems while simultaneously solving my own. And it's not meant to be like, oh, all of a sudden this god has inserted themselves into the story. No, I will always use it to either solve my own problems or try to shine a different light. It's also just very therapeutic sometimes for me. But these aren't writings I generally share, because I don't think they're very good, and I don't think I did the self-insert thing well. Maybe I will. Maybe someday you guys can have my my self-insert fan fiction for different things. But yeah, I think part of what makes this very overhated is just how often people who did this would just get so defensive and just They were ready to fight, and honestly, yeah, if you're going to do that, you have to be very, I want to say pragmatic about your approach with it, because otherwise you get just a little bit, I don't know, out of sorts. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that one. Next one, Mary fucking Sues. I have seen so many different versions of the Mary Sue and what they are. Now, here's my definition. This is the definition that I have held on to since I was a kid and I first joined the internet sphere. But a Mary Sue is your perfect character. They are generally likable. They have no perceivable flaws. They tend to have like this high status, or they're just the smartest person in the room and they've always got the answers. They can do absolutely fucking anything. And despite, their tragic backstory, these characters, I think, also have a place, especially for like a beginning writer who's learning how to write traits. Sometimes you'll have conflicting traits. Sometimes you'll have traits that too many positive traits to an unrealistic extent. Like, this person is basically God, a god or goddess, whatever. And I think that for the most part, they are also if they're written well, they can be fun. You don't even need to give them like traits, like negative traits, but have like realistic, have like a realistic reaction around them. So, for example, your Mary Sue is a princess who is able to calculate the exact measurement needed for, I don't know, an atomic bomb, right? They just know this shit offhand. Or they just know how to talk to people, and they know exactly what this person is into, their likes, their dislikes. Have like a realistic reaction from the people around them. Like, oh my god, how the fuck did she know that? Like, that's freaky. Like, how was he able to do that? Is he fucking manipulative? Like, what's going on here? Like, I think Mary Sue's can be interesting, but you have to either make interesting reactions around them, or you're going to have to actually add certain flaws. Like, oh my god, my flaw is that I'm too nice. No, I would say your flaw is that you're oblivious and not very self-aware. And those could be interesting traits. Like, they think everything's just good and wonderful, and then it's not. Not everything is cupcakes and rainbows, right? I think part of the problem, or part of what makes these kinds of OCs hated so fucking much, one has to do with, oh my god, they're going to solve everybody's problems, and your hard work, your story, your everything, it's just out the window. It doesn't matter. You don't matter because this perfect OC, sparkly, whatever, is here. And then if you don't like the OC, or if you have a problem, in my experience, people who did this tended to be very quick to get upset and take it very personally, and then you had like this huge explosive fight on their hands. But if done well, like, it could be interesting. It could be fun. I do think a lot of the hate actually comes more from years ago when there wasn't really, because there's like, I guess there really isn't a standard of RP, but I know there is like a sort of unwritten code of conduct and rules and like how to treat each other, how to be, how to, you know what I mean? It's just, there's just this unspoken like set of rules, and that was definitely especially prevalent on Tumblr, which is, I guess, where a large portion of my RP experience was. Now the last one is the canon copy. This one, I have the least problems with, and that's because a lot of what I did on Tumblr was I would RP, regular, or a canon character. What a canon character is, it is a character that has been, it's official to the material you're drawing from. It's from a character from a serialized series that you are generally drawing from. So, like, for example, Charlie Morningstar, she's a canon character to the Has-Been Hotel series. Steven Universe, he is a canon character to the Steven Universe series. So they are just the official characters of a serialized thing. For the most part. That's just my definition. Could be something else. That's just my definition. And I did a lot of canon character RPs because I didn't have confidence in my own creations. I have a lot more confidence now, but back then, not really. So I play a lot of canon characters like Ichimatsu from Osomatsu-san. I played Mikado from Durarara. Just stuff like that, right? And I would play them, and I think, and because of that, like, if somebody, it's basically this one other character, they just have, like, a slightly different look, or they're being, completely transformed into something else, I guess. Like, no, that's okay. That's okay. So long as you acknowledge that you're basically just ripping off another character, or it is a copy. Now, I would like to differentiate. There's the copy, and then there's just the character that happens to be very similar in concept. And you can't exactly go jumping to something being a copy without actual evidence. You can say, oh, this reminds me so much of X or Y. Kaboru from Delicious in Dungeon reminds me of Mikado from Durarara. Mostly the analytical, quiet, more or less unassuming, kind of a psychopath underneath. Like, those are similar characters, and, yeah, I'm fond of them. The thing with this one, the copy, I think they end up being hated because more often than not, they try to pass off someone else's work as their own. They try, instead of, like, acknowledging inspiration that they're taking from, they tend to be like, no, this has nothing to do with that. Purely mine, even though it's their face, their bio, it's that character, basically that character. I feel like it's important to acknowledge, like, where you're drawing your source from and what you're trying to do with the character, right? Very important. Especially if you're, like, drawing from somebody else's OC, or drawing inspiration from somebody else's OC, acknowledge and ask. Please, always ask, if you can draw from somebody else's OC. Especially if they're, like, smaller creator, right? Always ask. Let's see. Anyway, those are, like, just my thoughts on original characters and stuff like that. I know this video got a little bit long. I had a lot to say, a lot to think about. I kind of want to know what you guys think. What are some OC types that, you know, kind of grind your gears, and why? Also, if you want to, like, share some OCs or share some ideas you have in the comments, I would fucking love to read them. Like, give it to me. I love reading that shit. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Bye!